This week on a very special Rain on Your Parade, we've got Anthony Scaramucci in the house talking about reading and how to get young people reading more. Welcome back, everybody, to Rain on Your Parade with J-L Cauvin. I'm J-L Cauvin, here, as always, with Producer Mike. Hello, Producer Mike.
Hi, JL. How you doing? Hi, everybody.
I'm excited this week for two reasons.
Yep.
As people probably see from reading the description or the thumbnail on the YouTube, we have a very special guest this week. Super excited.
Yeah.
And I mean that. Like, I've had Anthony Scaramucci as a guest on my Trump podcast, and it was fun and everything. But this was a subject I wanted to do before I started listening, before I came upon his podcast on reading. I wanted to do it because it's a classic JL old man thing. Like, people don't read. People are getting stupid, you know. But then to know that there is somebody of more fame, who, as he will readily admit, not that it's a good thing, but people don't generally think of him as maybe a bookworm right away, but he really is.
Yeah.
And it's his podcast, Open Book. I've binged like 15 episodes.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, I listened to his audio book. That was the only way I could kind of consume his book in time for this show. But I'm excited to talk to him. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be thoughtful.
Yeah, me too. I listened to his most recent episode with Kara Swisher when I found out we were going to have him on the show. I really like him, man. I think that he's it's weird because he has an association with the Trump camp, but by all accounts, post-Trump, he seems like he's just been a pretty normal, like, smart and Italian, gotta love it, guy, you know?
And the thing about him is I think his Trump time was so colorful and so short, and he has explained it.
It's like Linsanity.
Yeah. Oh, what would be
Mooch Sanity?
But what's a good Scarapalooza?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's great.
But he almost is not as tainted for so many reasons as other people. Like, I am much more cool with Scaramucci being like, I was like third stringer called into a chaotic thing. Yep. I thought, why wouldn't I just try to help and try to do something? I believe in some of the policies. Right. I know Trump is out of control. And rather than the people who are like, I joined the Trump campaign in 2015. Yeah. But after cops were killed on January 6th, I said, enough is enough with this guy.
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, wow.
He was there for 10 days and he said, I'm out of here.
You climbed Bigot Everest and said, I'm not going to plant the flag. That's too far.
Right. Yeah, listen, man, he was in, I don't know a ton about exactly how it all went down.
He had the equivalent of a 2-episode arc on a show that was 4 seasons.
Right. And it's just like and
he's renounced so much of it so full-throatedly that it's like, you know me, I am somebody who's like, if I don't dig somebody for ethical, like, I'm like, I don't need that. But I'm like, I believe in him, and for the purpose of this episode, I can't wait to. It's a weird thing to be like, I can't wait to talk shop on reading and society. But I think
he's
it's
a smart
important.
guy, man.
Yeah, and he peaked. He peaked later than me. Like, I went to Williams, he went to Tufts. Same conference. Williams is a little bit more of the big dog in that conference.
Oh yeah.
But then I went to Georgetown Law. He went to Harvard Law.
Of course.
I became a comedian and a failed attorney and a failed comedian. He became like super wealthy investor guy and an author and
a major success,
a major financial success.
Yeah.
So just anybody out there resting on their Williams College laurels, sometimes somebody from Tufts laps you 800 times.
Yep.
But at Williams, I had a better rookie season.
Yeah, right. And that's what matters.
Speaking of Linsanity, but let's talk a little bit about body odor before we bring who I would guess smells impeccable.
From looking at him. First off, Italians never smell bad, ever.
Latin guys, I gotta say, also very, very good on the scent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was once
they're always clean.
Yeah,
Latin dudes and Italians, we are always I was raised, and I'm sure the mooch was also raised, never to leave the house without a nice shower, with your hair combed, a fresh shave. I'm not fresh shaved today, but and a little bit of cologne and some moisturizer, because that man looks very young. Right. I don't know how old he is.
60.
He looks great. He's 60?
60.
No shit.
Yeah.
He looks incredible. He looks great, and I bet he smells great.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in a cab one time, going to one of my nephew's soccer games, and got picked up by, it was a really nice car. You know, Uber, Lyft, some days it's just like, not a beautiful Cadillac, spacious Cadillac that smells great. Sometimes it's like somebody's 1988 piece of shit.
It's an armpit.
But this guy, his cab smelled so good. And I always thought to myself, if I was a chick, I'd probably go for Latin guys.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
a guy. I go for Latin women.
Well, me too.
You know,
don't tell Laura, but yeah. So I'm on the subway coming over here. You know, the J-L subway story is always fun.
Yeah, mandatory.
And there was a guy he got on, and it feels racist. It feels discriminatory. But there is a funk.
Yeah.
That only comes from untouched parts of Africa.
Uh-huh.
Where the guy gets on and I go,
be careful with this, please.
Deodorant has never touched you. You have been unsullied by the Western world's Old Spice.
Yes.
It's not just, I've smelled myself after a couple of, hey, I had shoulder surgery. I have an entire bit about the muskiness after 2 weeks of not opening my arm after shoulder surgery. And I said, my armpit was so musky. When I finally opened it up, it said, I was actually a doctor in my home country. That's how musky it was. Thank you. Tall Boy, everybody go get it. It's free. You don't have to do shit. Just watch it on YouTube. Worst fans in the fucking world. I will, but this guy gets, and there's a level of hey, who knows who it is? But when your eyes start watering, you're like, it's you, dude. It's you. I get it. 9 hours a day in the summer heat, on an e-bike delivering food, rough.
Yeah.
Just bop a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. I remember my dad, Haitian man, was not big into deodorant for a while because he didn't want the antiperspirant. That was unnatural. So he convinced.
I think he's right.
Right. I use deodorant too. I don't use an antiperspirant anymore.
Yeah.
So we got him to take a deodorant without an antiperspirant. Yeah. I was like, boom, problem solved. But this is that my dad had a musk once in a while, but this was, like I said, scientists could be like, this is when things are frozen in glaciers for 10,000 years, or this has been preserved. The musk was untouched. Mm-hmm. It was never diluted once.
Yeah.
So then I get to Starbucks.
Another obligatory thing that you have to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I get to Starbucks and I order a Frappuccino. So, there's nobody else waiting for a drink. So of course it takes 11 minutes.
Right.
And group of Eastern European immigrants hanging out, and I got the same musk. And I thought, see, this is to clear the air. It's not black, it's not white, Mike.
Yeah.
It's immigrants. Get out of my country with your funk. That's all. See, it's not racial, Mike.
Right.
MAGA Trump 2024. I just wanted to start with that. I have a bunch of shows coming up, folks. The biggest closest one is Mohegan Sun, June 13th in Uncasville, Connecticut. Huge show. It's the day before Trump's birthday. Me and Jay, for Making Podcasts Great Again, we're doing a live podcast, a Q&A. It's going to be a very fun show. And it's like I said, the eve of Trump's birthday. So it's going to be a funny, fun celebration and show. And then I'm in DC at the end of this month, June 28th and 29th at the DC Comedy Loft. Tickets are selling at a nice trickle. Let's open that up into a full flow.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, get tickets now. If you're in DC, if you have friends in DC, et cetera, I'd like to sell very well for those shows. Half Blackface.
Yep.
It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi. No new reviews this week.
We've hit peak reviews.
We hit peak reviews. So after telling my fans that my career was in their hands and that the special was free on Amazon, in the last 3 weeks, 14 brave souls. Okay. Jesus only had 12 apostles. Right. So look at me outpacing Jesus right now. Left nice reviews. So thank you to you 14 people. To the thousands who listen to my podcast and the tens of thousands who follow me on social media. Thank you so much for, giving me a dose of reality. Why should free comedy ever get anything? That's it. before we get to the gambling villain of the week, the Rangers are done.
Yeah, sad.
And I am not going to lie. I said to Laura when they lost, I said, I did a funny Henrik Lundqvist impression like 2.5 months ago on the podcast. And I was begging Mike for a clip to share during the Rangers run. Mike, you did it. Like Trump trying to wait out the judicial clock. It's over. You don't have to do the Henrik Lundqvist clip. The season's over.
I am trying my best to get I have to work on 7 shows. Slickbackstudios.com.
Listen, Mike, I'm so glad you didn't make the clip for JL, whose impression of me sounds sort of like I'm a little bit slow mentally, when in fact I have very high IQ and very quick reaction times, as evidenced by my goalkeeping during my Hall of Fame career. So shout out to the Rangers, who did a horrible job against the Florida Panthers. Igor Shesterkin, I feel your pain, because I too never won despite playing great.
Yeah, they never played for him.
Unbelievable how great Shesterkin was in this series, and how just outmatched the Rangers was. It was hard to feel bad, because it was just like, the Florida Panthers are better.
Yeah.
They're just a little bit better, but it's like consistently, clearly 1 goal better.
Yeah, and the Rangers felt a little sluggish in at least half of those games.
Yeah.
It seemed like there were a couple of games where they had like 2 minutes of offensive possession.
Yeah.
It's just like awful, Yeah. Not to get too into hockey talk.
No. But it's always a kind of synthesis of, like, we've talked hockey in the past.
Yeah,
so,
right.
So
we got to update. Right.
So before we get to Mr. Scaramucci and what I think will be a very fun, thoughtful, engaging episode, I got questions for him. I want to get his opinion on things. I want to know a lot and share with him some stuff. But the gambling villain of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this may be the last gambling villain of the week for a while, because I'm so disgusted at a Celtics-Mavs finals.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch that.
I am rooting for the Celtics.
Why?
That is how much I don't like Luka and Kyrie.
Kyrie is very hard to root for with the anti-Semitism and everything.
Yeah, that's all we need is him, like, him.
A national platform to condemn Zionism.
Yeah. I don't need that. And I don't. Luka is just, he's Jokic 2.0. He's push off. Yeah. But except Jokic, I have seen play defense. I have seen him play defense before. Not so much with Luka.
Yeah.
So I'm rooting for the Celtics, which is gross, but I just really don't like the Mavs.
Some New Yorker you are.
Yeah, well, a Utah Jazz fan. I think I've staked my claim as a fucking weirdo in this town.
That's fair.
But the gambling villain of the week is unfortunately Chris Kreider of the New York Rangers. Now, I showed you several parlays. It became up to a point that my friend John would text me before games and go, "Let's go Kreider?" ? Because I kept betting Kreider to score. I bet Kreider to score a goal in probably my last 5 bets between the last 2 series. Kreider to score a goal. I didn't bet Kreider to score a goal in 2 games. Mm-hmm. The one where he had a hat trick, and the one game he scored in this series. And I laughed at that and said, you know what? If you didn't score at all, if you pulled a Mika Zibanejad, I would have been like, fine.
Yeah.
The fact that you found a way to find the net only when I didn't bet on you, you're the gambling villain of the week, Chris Kreider. And it's been a pleasure watching you play, but like, facts are facts.
Yeah.
You don't get to escape this just because you've had a good season or I enjoy watching you play. You were a real pox on the gambling house of JL. So I think there's no reason to really delay this anymore. I've complained. I've made some racially insensitive anti-immigrant statements.
Sure have.
I mean, really clawed all the way back with my blaming it on immigrants and not race.
Yeah.
But let's just take a break now, and we'll be back with Anthony Scaramucci to talk reading. Well, we're back from break, Mike. How was that break? Probably a bad break because you're actually looking forward to this episode.
It was a great break because we got set up and I got to meet somebody briefly before we started recording who I've been so excited to have on the show.
Outstanding.
Go ahead.
Right. Flattery will get you everywhere with me. Yes.
Well, that voice
How do you say it? Coscarelli?
Coscarelli, yeah.
Coscarelli. See that? If you had just started Costco with that name, it would have been an Italian place.
Dude, if I had the foresight,
Costco Rally.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Wow, I'm I'm being squeezed out
because
here.
the two paisans were going to talk.
No Italian.
Like an Oreo cookie. It's like an Oreo cookie.
Well, what I'm going to say is the voice you're hearing right now. He's the CEO of Skybridge Capital. He was the communications director for the Trump White House for 11 days. He is the host of the excellent, and I mean excellent, I've been binging this podcast, Open Book, and he is the author of the new release, which I just finished this weekend, From Wall Street to the White House and Back. Anthony Scaramucci, thank you for joining us here on Rain on Your Parade podcast.
All right, well, I wouldn't miss this for anything, JL. I mean, I'm a huge fan, so it's an honor to be on with you, and it's an honor to meet Mike, and thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you. And the whole Oreo cookie thing, as a guy who's half Haitian, half Irish, I feel like if I'm not, I may not be from Southern Italy, but I share some
This is the problem with the Italians. Okay, at least Costco, really, the wholesaler that you hang out with, at least he knows that the Italians, okay, they're not white. Okay, so it's like an Oreo cookie. I'm not saying we're black because that'll be all racial, ethnic appropriation, and all that shit. But we're not white, okay? And the blacks know we're not white. And you know who else knew that we weren't white, Mike? Oh. Teddy Roosevelt. Okay, 1905, he signed legislation into law. It said that the Italians were to be treated as non-Caucasians for the purposes of immigration. So all my stu-nod buddies that are supporting Donald Trump, they don't know that, but that's fine. They're living in self-denial and delusion. Well, but it's good to be with you, J.L.
It's great to have you here.
I know you're Haitian Irish, so I don't know. Maybe we're not like an Oreo cookie. Maybe we're like one of those special like cookie and cream filling Oreo
with the
cookie or something
like a peanut butter Oreo.
Yeah, exactly. Like the special filling. You could be the special filling.
But yes, I'm very grateful for you being here. We wanted to talk about reading. I'm on this podcast. I'm basically, even though I'm 45, I might as well be 75 to Mike in terms of how I complain about where society is going, and from technology to manners to everything else. And I thought reading would be a perfect topic. And as I'm listening to your podcast, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the perfect guest, because I think we have a very similar approach to reading. It was my mother who sort of made me be a reader, because she graduated high school and went to work, no college education. So she has sort of that Goodwill Hunting sort of thought about books, where it's like, I can teach myself, I can learn. And the way you talk now, you're somebody, a NESCAC graduate, Tufts. I went to Williams. And I joked with Mike off mic. I said, and that's where me and Anthony started to really diverge in our paths.
You guys killed us in sports when I was there. I mean,
and you're killing it in life, and I want to kill myself. So that's the difference in terms of how
you look like you do. You look like you're doing pretty well.
For Tufts, like they can look at me and go, "Look at where Williams gets you." Comedy.
No, stop that. Tufts is so woke that they have no contact with me. Okay, I used to give them money every year. I was on the board of the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and because
you had Stavridis and Ackerman on your podcast to discuss 2054.
Yeah, and so Admiral Stavridis is a great guy. He was the dean of the school. He put me on the advisory board there. A couple of students that were woke students, they were upset that I worked for Donald Trump. So even though I was only there for 11 days, got fired, they said he has to leave the board. They signed a petition.
Wow.
And the president of the school said, yep, you got to leave the board. I said, that's cool. I said, I'm not going to give you guys any more money. No problem. You can, we'll forgive you these remaining pledges. So I haven't, I'm like Yogi Berra with Tufts. Remember when Yogi said he's not ever going back to Yankee Stadium?
Steinbrenner, right?
I've never been back to Tufts. And so, that, but I mean, look, by the way, I enjoyed Tufts. Mm-hmm. And Admiral Stavridis is a great guy, and a lot of great professors that unfortunately are now no longer with us. There's one guy, Saul Gittleman, who, if you like reading, you should listen to that podcast. I interviewed my former professor, 90 years old now. He's living in assisted living in Winchester, Pennsylvania. Winchester, Massachusetts. Saul Gittleman.
Wow.
But I like Tufts. No problem with Tufts, but Tufts don't like me, JL.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm not woke enough for Tufts,
Unbelievable. And you'd think even if it was Trump, you've certainly done more than enough penance to satisfy.
Yeah, it's fine.
Most
Listen, let me
people.
tell you, I thought I was going to help Trump. That's how stupid I am. My life is a course in risk taking, but also trying to own the mistakes that you make in life and not taking yourself that seriously. I got it wrong. I'm willing to admit that. I didn't see the specter of evil that Trump represented. And I'm watching a very large group of my friends still pretending it doesn't exist. I could list you everything he did, and I can list you everything he's capable of, and I can list you everything that him and his team are saying they're going to do.
Right.
And no rational person listening to all that, they'd say, okay, whatever. I can sweat out 2, 3, 4 years of bad policy. You can't have a guy that he pretends he didn't lose the election.
Yeah.
And then he goes on with this lie. And then the covering up for the porn star. Should they have brought that case? Probably shouldn't have brought the case. Is he guilty? Of course he's guilty. Right. Okay. I mean, so what do you guys want to do? You want to have a nut job? Be the president? This is the best country ever. Okay. Your life, Costco-Relli over here, his life, my life, we wouldn't be anywhere without this country. This is the greatest country ever. And so, but this is a union that, as Lincoln said, it's an imperfect union. We're striving to make it more perfect, but it's been this unbelievable experiment in global civilization, most prosperous, peaceful. We lost our way after 9/11, though. I mean, that's right. Really what happened to the country. We made a series of incredible mistakes after 9/11, and we haven't been able to find the moral leadership required to fix it now. So we're reeling, frankly. But
now I'm going to pivot this very quickly to books and say,
let's
best
back to
9/11 book: Ghost Wars by Steve Cole or The Looming Tower by Lawrence Wright.
So the best book is the Lawrence Wright book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes!
And but Stephen,
they're both great.
I interviewed him for the American Directorate.
Oh, I know.
Which is about the CIA.
Yeah,
He has a new book about the Achilles trap.
Right.
Okay.
Saddam
and I
Hussein,
interviewed him for that too. So if you go down the list of open book, I interviewed him for those. I liked Ghost Wars, but I thought Looming Tower was way better because Looming Tower explained what happened. Okay. The average American doesn't know that we were funding Osama bin Laden and that we were building him up in the Middle East and we were treating him as a mujahideen, a holy warrior. And then when he asked for schools, so he said, okay, you gave us all the Stinger missiles. We've repelled the Soviet Union. We would like schools and we would like money for economic aid. The American government said no. And by the way, he was still okay with that. It was when Cheney said we're going to put the airstrips, if you read the book.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
When Cheney said we're going to put the airstrips by Mecca and Medina, the two holy sites, bin Laden said, no, you can't do that. That's like recreating the Crusades. I'm a Orthodox Muslim. If you put the two airstrips there, we're going to fight you.
Right.
Okay. And listen, you don't want to make this about bin Laden, but if this was a baseball game, JL, it's 3-0 bin Laden. We're in the top of the 5th inning because he got it. He got us off guard. Okay. Because he wrote on the dark web, okay, you guys didn't listen. I'm going to hit you very hard. I'm going to spill your blood on your homeland. You're going to overreact, spend trillions of dollars wildly. You'll take away your own civil liberties, and I'll weaken and hopefully bring down your empire the way I brought down the Soviet Union. And that's exactly what he did. He hit us on 93. Well, we survived that with the bombing.
Yeah.
He hit us in 98 with the embassies in Africa.
Indeed.
He hit us again in 2000 with the USS Cole in Yemen. And then he got us really badly on 9/11. I lost a lot of friends and I was very happy the day that we executed bin Laden. But we did exactly what he said.
We pulled SEAL Team 6 out of the bullpen and they sat him down 1, 2, 3.
Right, but I want to, since we're talking about books, this book was written about 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And this is he's
holding up
historian.
April 1865 by Jay Winnick.
April 1865 by Jay Winnick. He is a scholar at the University of Maryland School of Public Affairs. And he's written a couple of spectacular books, but this was by far his best book. And this is a book that I would recommend to everybody right now heading into the November election. You say, why this book? Because the country
to be fair, just to interrupt you for a second, I will be recommending your book to listeners. So you might be stepping on your own royalties right now.
All right, that would be good too. But Jay, all right, look,
yes, there it is. From Wall Street to the White House and back.
And look at the airbrushing on this photograph. Can you believe the airbrushing?
Yeah, but you look pretty. You look pretty airbrushed right now in real time.
This is my 1982 high school yearbook picture.
Get out of here!
Airbrushed to make me look older. Airbrushed to make me. No, Mike, I'm fucking around. He's a comedian. I'm supposed to say some funny shit on his podcast. I'm going, look at this picture. All right, but that book is fun too. That book is about rising. My book is about you can get your ass kicked as long as it's not a health issue. Shut up and get back in the game and don't be a whiner. Don't be a baby.
I want to talk about your book a little bit later, but I want to talk to you first about like reading in general because now you have children, correct?
5 of them.
5. What's the age range?
Yeah, so I'm like a Mormon, but I'm sort of Catholic, right? I got 2 wives and 5 kids. I had 3 kids from my first wife.
Great.
I'm not really a Mormon because I got divorced. I'm Catholic, but I'm not allowed to get communion anymore because I got divorced.
Well,
and I remarried 10 years ago.
Okay. Well, no,
you know how to make a nun pregnant?
I do not. No.
Dress her up as an altar boy.
Oh boy. As a guy who still receives
don't cut that, by the way.
As a guy who still receives Holy Communion.
I can't receive Holy Communion because I'm a.
Well, my question is, how old is your oldest kid?
I'm a Catholic, but I don't like the hypocrisy of the church.
Of course.
Go ahead, say it again.
How old is your oldest kid in terms of like
32?
Oh, okay. So now they're out of your hands. But in terms of getting your kids to reach, how you have 2 younger kids, I assume.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things I'm curious, I don't have any kids, but I see kids on screens all day long on public transit, in my building, everywhere.
Right.
And I think reading, when I was a kid and even as a young adult, you'd see a lot of people with books and magazines on public transit, anywhere you go. Now everybody's on their phone and most people are playing games and playing texting and on apps. My question is, since you're such a big time reader, I know how my mom made reading so central to my life, like from very early on. Are you doing that for your young kids because they're going to be raised in the screen world?
So it's a really good question, but let me just say this. The older kids are pre-iPhone. Right? Because the iPhone came out in 2007.
Right.
They didn't get access to it until after they graduated from high school, the older kids. So they read more. My younger kids, there's only one thing you can do if you want kids to read. You have to get them to read things that they're interested in. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so if they're interested in sports, you buy them every sports book you can imagine. They like cartoons. Remember this?
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that picture of Trump getting it from, right? You feed them Mad Magazine. They like comic books. Buy them 100 comic books. My point is you can't say to a kid, I want you to read War and Peace. I want you to read something instructive or important. You got to get the kid hooked on the idea that if they read, they're going to be a way more interesting person. So let me say 3 things about reading that I think are very important, okay? The first thing about reading is that if you're going to be a learner, you have to learn to learn. How do you learn to learn? And the way you learn to learn is through books. And so my parents were blue-collar people. There were no books in my house. I think a salesman in 1972 from the World Book Encyclopedia conned my father into buying the 1972, full volume set with the dictionary, which was good for me because I read the whole goddamn thing. Okay. But he paid every month. He complained about it every month. And he made his soul recipes. He was a great guy. I'm not saying it that way, but I figured out if I wanted to get ahead, and I had money anxiety growing up. My father was a blue-collar guy. He was an hourly worker, great guy, very hard worker, would never dishonor my dad, guys, by telling you I grew up poor. Did not grow up poor. But what I figured out early is if I can get myself in the habit of reading, I can train myself. I can learn to learn. You want to know about history? Here you go. You want to learn about corporate development, career development, leadership, here you go. Politics, here you go. It's not perfect. The real world is different from the academic world. But that reading, in my opinion, made me more interesting. It made me more capable of being in a story. It made me more capable of getting through life or being a raconteur. So number one,
and I want to interrupt, but just on that point, I'm curious, after having listened to your podcast and you talk to a lot of different people and listening to, I had to get the audio book because that's the only way I could get it done fast enough before the episode. Right. But I'm curious because you often sort of half jokingly talk about being like a Port Washington kid and people thinking, maybe thinking you're not going to be as smart as you are, as much of a bookworm as you are, for whatever stereotypes or prejudices or just neighborhood.
Yeah. Come on, I grew up in Saturday Night Fever, Long Island.
I
had the Italian exoskeleton of Tony Manero.
Perfect.
And so a result of which, no one's going to take that seriously. If I was like bald with thick glasses and, I had a different mannerism, if you looked at my resume, you say, okay, the guy's super smart. Right. You see me as a Guido from, when we talk about Good Will Hunting, right? You see me as the Guido from Long Island, driving my Camaro, getting good grades.
Dude, can I just say
good Giovanni Hunting?
I didn't want to cut you off, JL, but it's so funny, Anthony, because I was listening to the most recent episode you did with Kara Swisher of your podcast, and there's that moment where she says to you, you had a quote from Marcus Aurelius, I think, in the book.
Yeah.
And she was like, she was like, I can't believe that I didn't even think you knew who Marcus Aurelius was. And I was sitting there, I was just like, I feel that coming from the same kind of background.
Me. I love her, by the way. I think she's great. You know what? I love her because she is so real.
Yeah.
She comes at you with sandpaper. And she's sandpapering you through the Zoom window. You know what I mean?
But my question is,
she was like, how do you even know who Marcus Aurelius is? I'm like, okay, so I read that book every January, and it sets me up for the year.
Because, dude, when I grew up, I'm in my 30s now, so I don't do it as much. But like when I was a bit of a cousine in my 20s, I think people were very surprised that I had read any books at all and knew how to speak English.
Let me tell you something. For your viewers and listeners, let me give them all a news flash. Okay, a lot of them are not going to like it. You get profiled in life.
Yeah.
Everybody understand that? If you're tall and you're good looking and you're white and you're waspy, people want to step on your face. They don't like you for that.
Yeah.
You think you're too white privileged, you're too advantaged. If you're black, you get profiled. Okay, I'm sorry to tell you that, but you do. Barack Obama will tell you that. I was in law school with him. There were black law school students smarter than me, couldn't hail a cab on Massachusetts Avenue because the cabbie was like, I'm not picking up the black guy. If I walked out there, dumber than those guys, and Barack Obama went on to be the president, I could get the cab. Okay, so that's life. I'm sorry. Okay, if I'm going to get canceled for telling the truth, I'm sorry. Cancel me. That's life. So I'm profiled. I've got a Long Island accent. Grew up in a blue collar neighborhood. Even though I went to Harvard Law School and Tufts, I'm a Long Island Guido, and they're expecting me to give them a dance move.
Right.
Okay, they're not expecting me to
or fix the car.
Quote Marcus Aurelius.
My question.
You want to hear one funny quick story? This is a fucking great story. I'm at Goldman. I'm at the fucking dinner at this partner's house. Okay, and he says to me, "Hey," I said, "Hey," and he was living on the water in the town I grew up in. He was living in Sands Point. I lived in Port Washington. He said, "Hey," I said, "Hey," he says, "Hey, can I see you for a second?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." He took me into the bathroom. And the faucet was dripping, Mike. You paying attention, Mike? And he looked at me and he said, my faucet's dripping. I said, yes, I see your faucet dripping. He said, well, could you help me with this? And then, first of all, I can't even screw a fucking screwdriver into a wall. Okay?
Yeah, me neither.
I'm a nerd Guido from Long Island.
Yeah.
I looked at him and I said, yeah, I can help you with that. I said, you know what? Tomorrow morning, I'll have somebody here to fix it. I called one of my cousins who is a plumber.
Right.
I said, go to this guy's house, go to this mook's house, fix the faucet for him. Don't charge him. Okay, I'll take care of it. I'll give you the part, whatever the parts are, I'll pay it. And I laughed. I could walk around and be like, oh, I got profiled by a Goldman Sachs partner. I laughed.
Yeah.
Because it's just the way the world works. What are you going to do? You're going to be upset? Kara Swisher, I'm 60 years old. And, I've built 2 successful businesses. Yeah, I stumbled at the White House. We could talk about that. But she's like, how does he know Marcus Aurelius? Okay, I did go to Tufts and Harvard Law School. I did do that, right?
Yeah. Well, my question before all that was basically just to say, obviously you love reading, but is there any part of you that feels like that sort of thirst for knowledge is like, I know how people view me and I want to defy that or surprise people, or is it just not enter your thought?
No, it doesn't never enter my thought. What entered my thought is my parents have no money. They're doing well enough. I mean, we're in the middle class. It's a tight budget. If my father's hours get cut back, we're getting cut back. And I'm going to make something of myself. And there's only one way out of this. And again, it's maybe different today, but I'm talking about the 80s. I had to get educated, had to get really good grades, JL. And then God willing, I could go to Harvard Law School, Harvard Business School, Columbia. And then from there, I could get into a career that would help me become financially independent. But I needed to be prepared for that.
Right.
So I don't have, I honestly, on the Bible, I don't have a chip on my shoulder. You know, there are golf clubs here on Long Island I cannot get into. I laugh. There are golf clubs here on Long Island. People would rather have me landscape the golf club than have me putt at the golf club. Trump has a chip on his shoulder, right? Like he couldn't get into Deepdale out here on Long Island. So he built 18 golf courses. You know, he's an angry guy with a chip on his shoulder. Let me show you.
Right.
I'm going to become the president. You're going to be forced to deal with me. I'm an important guy. I don't have any of that. My attitude is, this is me. If you like me, we're going to get along, get in the boat together. Let's row together and let's be successful together and let's share our success. If you don't like me, you don't like my attitude, my accent, you don't like where I've come from, no problem. There's plenty of fish in the sea. There's plenty of people to hang out with. But the three things I'm going to say about reading, you learn to learn. Mm-hmm. You have to learn to learn. Number two, and this is a little different now, but if this was 20 years ago, I would say, JL, for $10 and 10 hours, you can get 10 years of somebody's life experience. The reason why I interview authors, it's $30 now or $14.99 on Audible or whatever it might be. But the reason I interview authors is this man put this book together.
Right.
Okay. This man wrote a novel so this is a historical novel about the Cuban Missile Crisis. They researched it. They put it together. They have a story arc. There's syntax in this. You want to be a great public speaker? You got to be a reader. You want to be a great writer? You got to be a reader. You want to be a great comedian? You got to read. You got to see what other people see as funny.
Now, since the two things,
and then the last thing about reading, right? So the three things: learn to learn, $10, 10 hours, 10 years of experience, and then the third thing: read what you like. Right. Same thing I would say to the kids: read what you like, because if you don't read what you like, you're going to drop it, and you're not going to read.
Now, great advice. My two questions on this, because one of the things you talk about in the book, we might as well dive a little bit into the book while we still have some time. Read everything was I think lesson 7.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you talk about our common set of references. We used to have a common set of references where whether it was biblically based or classics based, or there would be a common set of references. I find that I read a lot. I read, a wide array of things. I have a lot of different experiences in education, but sometimes when I'm on stage, what might have been common 15 years ago, I feel like Dennis Miller sometimes on stage, because I feel like audiences are not reading as I think reading in general
they'll
is
miss
diminishing.
The double entendre. They'll miss the turn of the phrase. Yeah.
And I feel like my concern is not me reading. It's like, how do we get society to get back into books? That's a very big question. But I look at my nephew. I'll give you my nephew as an example. He was a complete bookworm before he got a cell phone. My brother and sister-in-law hesitated to get him a cell phone for a while. And then he started falling behind in his social relationships because every other kid had a cell phone. And ever since he got the cell phone, it's helped him, strengthen the bonds with his classmates and his friends. I haven't seen the kid with a book in 3 years, other than his schoolwork. And some of that's natural, but I feel like this is a bad trend, because when I was a kid, I read a lot, then I got a video game system, and then I read less.
Yeah.
But the video game system stayed at home. So it was just for those 2 hours that I might have read on the couch, I played video games. But now the cell phone is like a video game in your hand 24 hours a day.
Right.
And it's tough enough for adults like us to maybe put Twitter down or put this down. But for kids who are still developing, I feel like I'm fearful that reading is sort of in trouble in some ways.
Okay. All right. So here's what you do. You tell it's your sister or your brother?
My brother's kid.
All right. Your brother's kid. So you tell your brother, put a timer on, download Kindle or download iBooks and reward the kid and say, okay, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to read for 15 minutes a day. And when you open up that Kindle app, it's going to start registering that you're reading. And by the way, I don't care what you read. You read action comics.
Right.
We'll go to Amazon. We'll download Superman. You want to read Marvel comics? We'll download Spider-Man. I don't care what you're reading, but I want you to read for 15 minutes a day. If you're a baseball player, maybe we're going to read Ted Williams and how to hit a baseball.
Right.
If you're a soccer player, we'll read about soccer. If you need to write an English essay, just 15 minutes on rules of grammar, whatever it might be. And again, not an hour, not 5 hours, 15 minutes. And then what I'd like to do as your father, I'm going to reward you. I need to have a 5-minute conversation with you about what you read today. And what ends up happening is the kid will want to be smarter. You know, like if I've got to speak somewhere, I'm coming with all of this stuff that I've read. Okay. Or if I'm on television and I can tell, you're talking about superficial, I can tell when I'm on TV, someone's not well read. And then I just a couple of historical analogies.
Well, don't you think Donald Trump is sort of our biggest example of like how badly a non-reader can go?
Well, but you see, here's what happened with Trump, though, right? He's obviously got a learning disability. He can't read. He's probably dyslexic. He probably has attention deficit.
Oh, great. So Floyd Mayweather has the nuclear codes.
Okay, but think about it. But it doesn't make him dumb.
Right.
Like Richard Branson has those issues. He's a very smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump is intuitive. Trump figures out who he can manipulate. Problem with Trump, he's not an ethical guy, right? So everybody knows, of course, he paid the porn star. Everyone knows he committed fraud doing it. He's not an ethical guy. Okay, so there's no morality to the guy. And some of that could be from the learning disabilities. Like, I don't have to be amoral. I don't have to be nut. I mean, I tell my kids, there's no amount of money on planet Earth that I could make cutting the rules that could lead to me potentially dishonoring my dad. Like, if you want to call me stupid for working for Trump, no problem. If I buy you a stock, it's at 10, it goes to 5, call me stupid, no problem. I'm not stealing your money.
Right.
And I'm not doing anything unethical because I watched my old man work 45 years in hot and cold weather outside to give me this opportunity that I have. So I would never dishonor my dad by doing something unethical. Sorry. Just not going to do it. Now, you may not like my attitude, you may like my approach to life, no problem. But you know what? Trump can't do that because he's got a deficit. So he's got to overcompensate. Right. He's got to overcompensate with his anger, his bullying, his amorality. He's got to do all that to just get to the starting gate or past starting. You know, they call it the Trump foot wedge when he plays golf. He's kicking the ball all over the place. And he's kicking your ball all over the place.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's throwing your ball in the woods while he's pulling his ball out of the sand trap. And so where I'm getting at, if you tell the kid, and I'm going to give you an app, it's called Blink List, BLINKLIST. Okay. And there's one other app. It's called Book Rags, especially for the young kid. Book Rags. You tell your brother to buy subscriptions to those two apps, download them on your nephew's phone. And I did this for my oldest kid. I said, listen, I know you've lost interest in reading, but you do this, I'm going to reward you. Okay, you want to make $50 a week, $25 a week, whatever the family's budget is. Want to make $100 a week? Want access to my car? Read for 15 minutes. Tell me what you read. Let's have a conversation about it.
Right.
Okay. And what ends up happening is the kid will get hooked. And then once he's hooked, he's on his phone. He's going to look at Instagram and Snapchat and play video games. But he's going to read for the 15 minutes because you know what? It's going to make him smarter. And weirdly, it's going to make him cooler. Okay. If he wants to meet women, be interesting. Yep. Okay. You know this. You're a comedian. You know, your spouse, let's say you're a male and you like males. Your male friend wants you to be interesting. You're male, you like females. Your female friend wants you to be interesting. You're a female that likes females. Same thing. Female that likes males. You want to be interesting. How do you be interesting? You know things. You can force the conversation. You can energize the conversation with what you know.
Agreed.
You know? And that to me is enough of a spark to create a thirst in somebody for reading. But you're right that you're up against this, right? This phone. So put a couple apps on the phone, set the timer. I'm asking you for 15 minutes. Right. That's it. All right. By the way, if I see on your phone that you did 30 today, I'm giving you extra.
I feel like you're about to reward me. That's how this feels. I feel like it's that.
Well, I mean, I'm going to reward you on November 5th, actually, because you're going to keep up your bullshit with the hat and the orange hair and the fucking cornstarch coming out of your nose and all that shit that you do. And you're going to keep people alive during this crisis. You're going to keep their morale up.
Yeah.
And you're going to expose the idiocy of what's going on. And I'm going to help you do that because I'm going to be out there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one of the funnest podcasts I did was you as Trump, me as your communications director, because you handled it beautifully. He could never really confront me, the guy. So you were being overly nice to me because that's exactly what he would do.
Right.
He doesn't, because he's, you know, come on.
Well,
I mean, poor guy, right?
Well,
and after what Stormy said, look at me. After what Stormy said, oh my God.
Yeah.
The poor guy, right? You know,
but it's a lot easier to be sympathetic when he's, you know, when he's not wielding his power abusively. I would, obviously the book is sort of, it was funny listening to it. I was wondering if my neighbors walking by were like, is Anthony Scaramucci this guy's life coach? Because it's like, because the audiobook, and you keep talking about your Long Island accent. I'm going to say it right here. And I feel like I've heard other people say this. I have told my girlfriend that when I listen to you speak on a podcast or when we've spoken or on your audiobook, I go, this feels like a neighborhood therapist. Like you have a great tone to your voice. You're always saying your accent, but I find your speaking very soothing.
Well, I don't know. Maybe because you grew up like me, but here's my thing, okay?
And you speak of your father. I want to say this. I want to give my mom props.
Kicked, right?
Wait. I got to give my mom a little bit because when you talk about seeing your dad work his ass off and setting that kind of example that you want to live up to, I think for me, it was my mom, seeing my mom sort of just bust her ass.
And by the way, I don't mean any disrespect for my mom because you hear my mom on my podcast. I bring her on. She just
wants you to run for president. Can you answer now? Will you?
Every day she says that to me, right? That's what says to me.
That's what I found funny. My mom says to me, you should run for office. Now your mom shoots higher because you've been in higher places. My mom simply says, you should run for something. You're smart. You read, you talk well.
Hey, J-L, I'm running for re-election in my marriage. Okay. That's what I'm doing. Okay. And by the way, I may be on fucking term limits. So I don't know. It could be a 1-day term at this point. I don't know. You know, I love my wife. We almost got divorced during the Trump thing, which I've written about it, been open about. And she hates politics. I mean, she hated Trump almost as much as Melania hates him. I mean, and that's like through the roof. I mean, It's through the top of this Zoom camera. Okay. I mean, you have no idea how much Melania hates the guy. I mean, Jesus Christ. Of course she hates him. But my wife really disliked him, told me not to work for him. And as I write in the book, I let my ego get the better of me. And I made the mistake of ego. And I have to own that. But here's the thing. You don't have to live in the past. You don't wake up in the morning and kick yourself in the pants and say, oh, this didn't go well for me, or this should have happened, or that should have. Who cares? You got your life. You got your girlfriend. You got your meal. You got your... You know, what are we going for in life? I can tell you the very, very rich are not living that much differently than the middle class. If anything, they've lost trust with people. And it's scary. It's sad to see. A billionaire is like, okay, I can really only hang out with the guys that I was friends with before I got here because
Right.
I can't trust anybody anymore, right? Obama said that in the White House once. He said, I gotta hang out with the people that got me here, not the people that are here when I'm here.
Right.
Because, this trust membrane goes up. And I'm not saying look, it's more fun to have more money. I'm not saying that, of course. I'm not a bullshitter.
Right.
It's easier. Life is easier if you have more money. You have more flexibility. But what you don't have is what you have or what I have. Or Mike, I don't know him as well, but I've interacted with you. You have a passion for what you're doing in life. Okay. And that is worth it, man. Whatever it is, it's worth it.
Which is why
I got two.
Wait, I found the chapter. There's one other chapter I really wanted to bring up, which I found. And I'm telling people, I am usually, like I said, I'm a reader. I'm not an audiobook guy. But when I heard that it was you reading the book, I said, I'm going to listen to this over the weekend.
Yeah, I wrote it. But you could also
soothing.
tell that I wrote that book, right?
Yes.
You could tell I read it to be like, all right, it sounds exactly like the way the guy talks.
Yes.
I wrote that book.
But you had lesson 13 was one I really listened to intently. Know when to quit. Because to me, that was the one I absorbed the most because as you can imagine, comedy is very up and down. And,
right, of course.
There are times where I'm 45. I've had some highs. I've had a lot of lows, but I've had some really good highs. And the question is it frustrating enough? Do I make the people I love around me more annoyed? I certainly know I make Mike annoyed. I just like Mike, though. He's not a loved one. He's a friend. Where it's like, is comedy becoming more of a negative than than a positive in my life, day to day, week to week?
All right. Well, I don't know how much money you're deriving from the comedy, and I don't know if it's sustaining your lifestyle or not, or whatever that is.
It's like half my life, but I make space for it where
but here's
something could
here's
fill
what
in.
I would say to you. Okay, it is the love of your life. I'm sure you love your girlfriend. I'm not mean it that way.
No. She knows that comedy is first. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, all right, but you know what I mean, though.
I know.
Okay, so
that's why I'm still in it. It's a very but I don't want it to be a compulsion, if you know what I mean, versus a passion.
I understand that, but like you want to do things. It's that parable. The guy's out there fishing. He's in Mykonos. And the rich guy comes over to him. What the hell are you doing? Oh, well, I'm here fishing. So what do you want to do with life? Well, I'm going to make a big ton of money. I'm going to move here and go fishing. Well, why the hell are you not here fishing anyway? You know what I mean? And the rich guy looks at the fisherman. He's like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. My point is you're here, right? You're fellow comedian. And you got to read his book, All About Me. Is Mel Brooks, your fellow comedian.
My mom gave it to me. I'm reading it later this year. It's on my my shelf.
Or download it because he reads it. And you get it in his Jewish Brooklyn 1920s voice, And he's a brilliant guy. But what does he say? Relax. None of us are getting out of here alive. Okay. But you could do stuff like what's the guy's name? The Bob Schmeigel, the shit talking dog.
Yeah. Triumph.
Okay, so you could do skits, you could do animation.
Right.
I could set you up with my son, who's a film director. You've got 3 or 4 ideas in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You do. We could do a few skits together. It'd be fucking great. You and I should do a commercial. You as Trump, me as me. Let my son film it. I bet you it will go viral. Okay, we'll gin it up.
Yes.
In other words, like there's ideas. You gotta think outside. What's that?
No, I'm kidding. I'm saying, of course. Like I'm not. I don't have to think about that.
You're calling the shot here, Anthony. If you make any suggestions or you're willing to do,
my point is, you have such good bandwidth. Okay, and I would just say, don't overthink it. Bob Schmeigel calls me, okay, out of the blue. He say, hey, it's Comedy Week. I want you to be a guest on the Shit Talking Dogs Jeopardy show. Okay, so I'm with the pot smoker from Saturday Night Live. What's the kid's name? He's got the tattoos everywhere.
Pete Davidson.
Okay, so I'm with him and Lawrence McDonald from MSNBC, who's a complete fucking asshole. I mean, I never met a bigger asshole than this guy, right? He's like this pedantic asshole, right? And the kid is just smoking pot the whole time. Couldn't be nicer, right? Lawrence O'Donnell's got an attitude. He's acting like a big jerk off, right? I'm there to have fun. the shit talking dog, there's a column and it says in the ass. And so you have to say, I'll take it in the ass, right? So the column says it in the ass. So you're on jeopardy. So, Mr. Self-Important McDonald, he's not taking that one, right? Fucking, the other kid is like too high. So I'm looking at the thing. I said, you know what? I'm going to take it. I said, you know what? There's maybe 500 people in the room. I'll take it in the ass for $20. The fucking place goes crazy. I get the question right. The shit talking dog looks at me. Do you want to continue? I said, of course I want to do it. I'll take it in the ass for $40. Fucking place is going. When I got to 60, I leaned over to the crowd. I said, you know what? Some of you guys are taking it in the ass for no dollars. Just remember that. I'll take it in the ass for $60. My point is, you got to go live your life. You got to have some fucking fun. Schmeigel, he always brings it up to me. He just did that cartoon with Adam Sandler for Netflix. It was like over the holiday season.
Oh, Leo?
And,
Leo. I love that movie.
Yeah, Schmeigel wrote that movie.
Wow, nice.
So you got to get outside the box. You and I will go have lunch. I'll fire you up. You get outside the box. Start thinking about what the possibilities are. And like you said, throttle the fucking car, man. Throttle the car. You don't have to hit the fucking gas and go.
My audience is going to love this. You're like, somebody you gotta, getting J.L. out of his mopey bullshit.
I got fired from the White House. Some PR crisis manager told me, go stand in the corner, fly to Europe, take 5 years off from the United States. Don't be seen or heard from. Fuck that. I went on fucking Colbert, man. And Colbert said, hey, do you think you're going to last a long time? He said, longer than a carton of milk in the refrigerator. I'm not sitting here stewing in my stupidity. I'm not going to do that. And nobody should do that.
Now,
what you should do is you should say, hey, I'm going for it in life. If it goes well, that's great. Don't get too full of yourself.
Right.
And if it goes stupidly, okay, that sucks, but get over it, okay? Because you got tomorrow.
And I will say that from the book, I really got a really strong sense of positivity and resiliency. And I'm telling people who listen to me know me as a Debbie Downer from time to time. If I'm feeling good from this book, it's, then maybe they should check it out as well. But I want to.
Well, let me tell you why comedians are a little bit down, though. You want to, not that I'm a shrink, but
yeah,
comedians all down. You got to be very smart to be a comedian. You got to be very smart, and you got to have timing, and you got to understand human beings, and you got to speak honestly, right? Like if you read the biography of Robin Williams, when he died 10 years ago, I went and read the biography.
Yeah, great.
He said his comedy's based on truth. And so what do we know? If you're a comedian, you're closer to the truth. And so what do we know about the truth? The truth can sometimes be ugly. And the truth can be nasty. We can see all the complexity of the world, the violence, the issues, young children, starvation, whatever it might be. And we can see the general unfairness. And so when you're a comedian and you're closer to the seam of what's going on, right? You didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to answer it anyway. What is the most important fictional literary character in the 5,000-year chain of literature? And I'll answer it. It's Cassandra. Do you know who Cassandra is?
No. I mean, I've heard. I know enough to have heard of
So,
Cassandra.
but it's interesting. Taylor Swift has a song out right now called Cassandra. And I said to my kids in the car, Cassandra to me, and I have read everything, Anna Karenina, War and Peace. I've read fiction, nonfiction. But Cassandra is the daughter of Priam. The book is 3,000 years old. It's the Iliad, right? Homer's Iliad, Odyssey. Right?
Yeah, Odyssey.
And the Iliad.
That's how sad. I loved that, but I didn't, things go after 30 years.
Okay, but the first book is the Iliad. What happens in the book? The goddesses, they bless Cassandra with clairvoyance, but they also curse her with no one's going to listen to her. So she goes to her father, and she says, this is really bad, okay? Paris stole Helen from the king's brother, and the king's coming here with 1,000 ships. He's going to burn down the city. And you got to listen to me. And the father said, I'm not listening to you. We're okay here. And he lost everything. But what is Homer trying to teach you with Cassandra? Cassandra represents our denialism. Okay, Aaron Sorkin, the screenwriter from A Few Good Men, who was the Cassandra figure there? Was Jack Nicholson. Remember this storyline? You can't handle the truth. Okay, that goes right back to Cassandra, because Homer was trying to teach you in the Iliad, you can't handle the truth. We're in denial. We pretend that we're not going to die. A death is for other people. Somebody gets sick. We like, okay, let me go check my blood pressure, make sure I'm okay. Okay, that's them. It's not me. We all do it collectively because we're in a hive mind. But what is Homer trying to tell you? Face the truth. If you can face the truth about your mortality, about your frailness, about the humble nature, you're gonna die indignantly, unfortunately, because we go out. If we're lucky, we go out at age 100. We're going to be in a wheelchair. That's indignant. Or if we go out with a sickness, okay, we life will take us to the knees. The comedians understand that better than the other people. They're closer to the truth. They can get down. Don't allow yourself to get down. Focus on, like I tell people, hey, people call me short. I say, well, you know what? I'm too short to see the glass anything other than half full. Okay, you might be tall, but when I'm looking at the glass, it looks full to me. And by the way, you tall son of a bitch, there's less oxygen up there anyway.
Oh no, I know. I'm definitely. You're gonna be. You'll be tweeting about my funeral for sure. I am going out before you.
Hey, I'm gonna be there.
15
years.
Who
the hell knows? I don't know. Who knows, man? After COVID, I'm like, who the hell knows what's gonna happen? But J-L, you get my point though.
Oh no, I do. And I'm telling you, your book.
Let
me plug your book.
All right, go ahead.
Let's get some sales, some more sales. I just, like I said, it really felt like I was listening, having like a pleasant, uplifting, thoughtful, not free, $20, $5,000 worth of kind therapy for $20 on an audio book.
It's very sweet.
And it comes from somebody who has you talk about, the good thing is you talk about your ups and downs. So there is a sense of, yes, you've accomplished a lot. And here's also some humiliating stories, which sort of gives you more grounding and more just basis to be trusted and to be considered, like your wisdom, your thoughts, your advice. It comes from somebody who's not just doing I got out of Harvard Law School. I started Skybridge Capital. I never had any crypto issues and everything's great. I wanted to ask 2 questions before we have to wrap this up.
Please. But don't do that to your nephew or your kids either. Right? My kids have to see my warts.
Right.
Like I told Kara Swisher, you don't want, I got all these billionaire friends. Their lives are perfect. They started here. They did everything perfectly. Let me write you the memoir about my perfection. That's not going to help you kids.
Right.
What's going to help you kids is the truth.
Now here's a question for you. And you can only pick one because now I've listened to your work. I've listened to your show. Only one of these people you can meet. Okay. Marcus Aurelius, Teddy Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, Viktor Frankl. Because that to me was like your Mount Rushmore in the book.
So Teddy, I admire, but I'm still mad at him for the whole non-Caucasian thing with the Italians. Okay,
there you go.
He's off the list, but I do admire him. Okay, Aurelius, I don't want to meet because Aurelius did not want the book exposed.
Oh.
Okay, and so my attitude is Aurelius lives with me by accident. Remember, the slave was supposed to set the book on fire,
right?
But he taught the slave how to read. So when the slave read it, he said, okay, I can't set this on fire.
Right.
This is just too much wisdom in this book. Other people, thousands of years from now, will read it, and they can find comfort in their lives from what General Aurelius is saying. Okay, we need a leader like him right now, by the way. So I don't want to meet him because he didn't want me to meet him, and that was an accident. Okay? You got me down to Churchill and Viktor Frankl, and I'm going with Frankl.
Okay, wow.
And I'm going to tell you why, okay?
Well, that's your number one book. It's A Man's Search for Meaning.
He lost everything, JL. He lost everything. So You could be having a bad day, or maybe your comedy's not going perfectly, or something's going wrong when you're related. It doesn't matter. He lost everything. They incinerated his family in a concentration camp. And he picked himself up from that. And he was trying to tell you that this is a gift, the trials and tribulations of this. If you think about this vast universe, and I'm sure there's life on other planets, but there's life on this planet. And if you think about how vast the universe is and how mathematically impossible it is to be alive, and if you think about this planet and the mass of the planet, there's a very small mass of living things and an even smaller mass of human beings that have consciousness, that have sentience, that can observe themselves and think about their lives and analyze and break down the science of what's happening around them. That's a very compelling and very exciting thing. Yes, there's badness and there's evil in the world, but you have to balance that with all the hope and the optimism and the opportunity. And so I would want to sit with him, because I've read that book 6 times and I don't understand the answer to this question. How did you get off zero? Right. How did you become Viktor Frankl? How did you go through that trampling and that unfairness and that injustice and all of your loved ones being killed? You got off of zero and became Viktor Frankl. And I would want to know that. Winston Churchill, he's written so much and I've read so much, and I'd love to hang out with the son of a bitch, and I'm sure he's a real funny MF. Okay, and I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun to hang out with him. But Viktor Frankl got off zero, JL. The whole world was an avalanche of cruelty and unfairness. And he built himself. How'd you do it?
And I
can't figure it out. It's not in the book.
As we run out of storage,
I'm sorry.
That is the perfect note to end on. So I just want to give you the last word to, tell everybody where they can listen to the podcast, where they can get the book, where you prefer them to get the book.
So you can go to where your podcasts are, Open Book, and I got the book here somewhere. I don't know what I did with it, but it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, local bookstores have it, thank God. It got to 23 on Publishers Weekly.
All right.
The New York Times is a little bit of a jerk-off session, because if they don't like you, they won't put you on the list. But Publishers Weekly is like a real statistical thing. We sold over 4,000 books last week.
Beautiful.
And so we're 23 on the list in the country, which I'm proud about, because I wrote, look, I put my heart and soul into that book. I tried to, and again, I wrote it as lessons so that people wouldn't you could go to the middle of the book and read. You don't have to go to the beginning or the end,
It was.
But I appreciate you bringing it up. I'm very flattered that you.
No, it was very enjoyable.
Me on, but I want to do a routine skit. You and me as me, you as Trump.
Sounds good.
So we could just go through the insanity of it, because sometimes through comedy, like Bill Maher does a good job of this, you can explain to people how insane something it is.
Sure.
By appealing to their sense of humor.
Well, I thank you for joining. I hope everybody, hey. If you haven't been reading for a while, I think your book is a good place for people to start. And I think your advice on how to get kids in a digital age reading again or reading for the first time is valuable, because I certainly don't like being 45 and surrounded by non-readers. I'm going to be real miserable if I'm 75 surrounded by extra generations of non-readers.
You and I will be in the same nursing home together, right? We'll be in our own book club.
I'll be in you'll have your own wing, and I'll just, I'll knock to see if I can hang out. Well, thank you very much for doing this. Appreciate it. And everybody.
Hey, guys, I appreciate the opportunity of being on. Thank you. Lots of love to both of you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we're back. And I feel like I need a cigarette after that beautiful, long, engaging segment with Anthony Scaramucci.
I love him. I met him for an hour. He charmed the shit out of me.
Yeah. I mean, I can just tell over here. It's like, he's a paisan.
Yeah.
He shut me up for a while. Yeah. He's got good energy. You're like, this guy is like doing all that I want.
It's a big wet Italian suckfest over here. I love the guy. I really did. I was expecting to like him going into it. Immediately when he came on the Zoom, hey, Coscarelli, you're a paisan. I was in. He didn't have to say anything else, and he ended up being like a great guest, super smart, gave us double the time we thought we'd have with him.
Yeah.
And what more can you ask for? Guy's great.
Yeah, and I just hope he's this is, and the thing I would say to people who are still listening for me, if you found him engaging, then you really should get like get the audiobook. I like the audiobook of it. I'm obviously usually a reader. This is the first audiobook I've ever had, but also his podcast. Not that I need to cross,
It's good. Yeah.
It's a really good, and that's the thing. He was the guest with us.
Yeah.
So, and we were promoting his podcast at my request. He did not approach me. So I wanted to have him on. So he sees the spotlight as the guest, but on his podcast, if my 5 fans out there are like, but I wanted to hear J-L complain about reading more and how people are dumb. Instead, this was too positive for a usual rain on your parade. Open book. He sort of, he's the host.
Yeah.
So he shares his experiences, but he cedes some of the ground to some very, very great and interesting authors. So open book, wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't be afraid. I don't mean to, don't be afraid to, like, if you leave a review or you say something, J-L sent me here.
Yeah.
Let him know that,
boost the Q rating.
Yeah. Cause then, he'll come back, but he'll come back even more excited if he sees that we had an impact.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the punch down of the week. We give everybody, nobody wants to follow Anthony Scaramucci.
Certainly not Vinny.
Well, no, Vinny.
This is a no Vinny allowed episode.
We sent Vinny to sensitivity and cultural training, knowing that we were going to have a very proud, high profile Italian American on the show. We didn't want him showing up here and giving the wrong impression of what a great space this is for the Italian American community.
That's right.
And Scott Pelley is like, I'm lifting. I don't,
Yeah.
This guy had words for my friend Lawrence O'Donnell. No, thank you.
Oh yeah. He said, Mooch specifically asked me to leave it in. I'm gonna.
Scott Pelley is like the jacked Lawrence O'Donnell. So I don't know if Mooch wants that smoke.
Yeah. No, but Lawrence O'Donnell, Scott Pelley's probably kind of cool. I don't see him as a stiff the way Mooch was like, Lawrence O'Donnell is a bit of a stiff. I was like, I see that.
It's really, I think we might just be judging like, hey, Scott Pelley lifts a lot of weights, bro.
Yeah.
He can't be too much. But what if there's 2 types of lifters. There's guys who have a little space in their brain for gym culture.
Yeah.
And those are the loose guys. Then there's the guys who are like, I got into competitive lifting.
Yeah.
And now my doctor recommends at least 45 minutes a day of vigorous strength training.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're even worse than Lawrence O'Donnell. Nothing against Lawrence O'Donnell from me, in case I'm ever a panelist on MSNBC. He speaks for him. Maybe one day I'll meet him and say, hey, I disagree, Anthony. Or I'll go, hey, you were right, Anthony.
Yeah.
So my punch down of the week is a very simple one this week because there's so many under one category. I did a video, Jay of Making Podcasts Great Again. He cuts clips every week for the show, and I post them on social, but I also
does he?
He does audiograms.
Oh.
And I post them on, who taught him to do that? No, he learned himself, but you used to do them for us. And he cut one that was me as Trump bashing NASCAR, like an off the mic, like a hot mic kind of bashing the NASCAR community.
Yeah.
And so I posted it to my alternative Trump channel, Trump the Internet. Subscribe if you're not already. Usually these things get like between like 1,500 and 3,000 views just because I have a large following. So they don't really trigger the algorithm. This one's at like closing in on like 20,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
And I say in the bio and in the description, like it's a parody, like it's Making Podcasts Great Again. Go listen to it on iTunes. It's clearly a comedy thing. The channel is clearly a satirical channel. Oh my God. Every other comment. This is fake. This is just Democrats trying to put out AI bullshit against Trump because they can't beat him fair. There's people going like virtue signaling, like, I am not a Trump fan, but I must say this is fake.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, congratulations. If anybody read, we see keeping it in theme.
Yep.
If anybody would just click on the description of the video, the channel bio, anything other than just watching it and going, I figured it out. This is propaganda, AI, far left bullshit.
Yeah.
And I was like, or it's not. And if you read, you could stop being an amateur conspiracy theorist and detective. And you just be like, oh, it's comedy that I either like or don't like. And once again, reading, everybody. You know, Anthony said, read what you like and get somebody. If you want to read comics, as long as you're reading, as long as you're doing the reading process. Well, in my comedy world, the audience doesn't read anything, so they don't get references. And I'm talking, you know, I once made a Godfather reference, and that's a movie, obviously. But
yeah,
I had somebody just give me a look like, okay. And I was like, what do you mean, okay?
Yeah.
It's okay if you don't get it, but you should know enough to know that that's a thing.
Yeah, right.
Like a big thing,
yeah.
You know? So punchdown of the week goes to the 40 plus comments of like, this is fake. This is propaganda. This is AI. And of course I take a little compliment where it's like, no, it's me. But once again, JL's comedy career, that's the one thing I can't get, which is credit for a good impression.
Yeah.
I'm either lip syncing and don't deserve credit, or I'm AI.
Yeah. In
the words of Isai Morales, aka Bob from La Bamba, what about me, Richie? First ballot overacting Hall of Fame in that movie. Did you ever see La Bamba?
I don't think I ever have.
Wow. His brother, Isai Morales.
Yeah.
You gotta watch. He's been in some big things. Ozark. He was the villain in the most recent Mission Impossible movie. Uh-huh. So he's been in plenty. But his performance as the drunk, like half brother Bob in La Bamba.
Yeah.
I mean, it is first ballot Hall of Fame overacting. Now, comedy special to recommend, and then we can get out of here. I watched 2 today, and I was glad I watched the second one. No, I'm not reviewing one. One was fine.
Yeah.
But if I'm reviewing a big time star, a Netflix thing, I don't mind being like, it was mediocre. I'm not trying to like bring up somebody's YouTube special and be like, don't watch it.
Yeah.
It was fine. It wasn't bad, but I kind of left going, I don't know if I want to talk. Like, I don't know if I'll be praiseworthy enough to like bring it up. The second one I watched was Gary Vider. He has a new special produced by Sam Morrill, and I believe it's called It Could Get Worse. Can you look that up for me with your keys? I'm always bad on this. It's so prepared. Be prepared. What movie, Mike?
Lion King.
Very good. I forgot you're a musical theater guy at heart.
Yeah, kind of. The Gary Vider special is called It Could Be Worse.
It Could Be Worse. It's a very easy, digestible one because it's like really about 36, 37 minutes when you get out credits and outtakes. From start to finish, I wouldn't say it's 37 straight minutes of great jokes, but it's about 30 minutes of great jokes, but with a theme. And I will say this, he has kind of the deadpanishness of like a Todd Barry, but joke wise, there's almost like a Dave Attell-ness to it where it's like there's like random chunks, but it all strings together where you feel like you've watched a story, even if you haven't quite watched a story. But it's really, and I haven't seen Gary in many years, but Gary, I will say this, was always a very nice guy when he booked shows, you know, was always amenable to booking people. And I'm not letting this bias me, but it's actually, it's a good thing because this is a guy, he grinded, he worked hard and he was always nice. Maybe there's somebody out there who was like, he was a dick to me, but like, if you're nice to me in comedy, if I have something good to say, then it means you're a nice guy. Because as you know, Mike, I'm that guy who's like, he's cool. And it's like, oh, those are the people who are cool with everybody.
Yeah.
And then there's one guy that's like, I have beef with him. And like, nobody else does. That's my style. But Gary is one of the good ones. He's been one of the good people, I think, in comedy. And this is a very, very good, enjoyable, 40 minutes out of your day. And it's well worth it. So Gary Vider on YouTube, It Could Be Worse. So, yeah, I think you get Scaramucci's book, you watch Gary Vider's special, you're going to have a good weekend.
Yeah.
You're going to have good vibes, a lot of laughs, good energy weekend. So once you're done listening to me and you need that chaser, that positivity chaser, I just gave you a few recommendations. So thank you. everybody, please, Mike, do you want to do the honors or should I tell them what to do?
Please, if you're watching on YouTube, go over to our audio feed on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We would love for you to leave a review if you haven't already. And if you are listening to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, please go over to YouTube. Leave a comment in the video. It helps the algorithm. It helps us. It gets the video to more people.
And ha 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 to the people who will go comment.
It still helps.
It does
I don't care. Do it if you want.
You know I care a little bit.
I don't.
Mike doesn't care at all.
Don't listen to JL on this one. If you want to just say comment, that's fine because it just pushes things up.
It does, but it's a wasted opportunity. I would say it's a wasted opportunity because you can ask a question. You can, I have a guy who I just muted from the channel because he insults me every episode.
They are aware that if they fuck up in the comments, they're going to be in the punch down of the week. These are listeners of the show. They know.
No, and I'm telling you right now, I muted a guy. Like a guy's comments will never appear on the channel again.
Great. All right. Well, that's not going to help us win over the algorithm. We're literally sucking off the algorithm to try to get this over the hump. All right, let me do these plugs so we can get out of here because I have to go home. I've been here since 9 a.m. All right, so do all those things, please. If you are not subscribed to JL's YouTube, please do that. You can find my show, Mike Coscarelli Rules, on my YouTube channel and wherever you get podcasts. And we also want to give...
And in Cuba, probably.
Yeah, we're Well, Ronnie's actually... There's news coming, but that'll be for a different week. Thank you again to Anthony Scaramucci for coming on. We really appreciate it. One of the few people that seems to have taken a crack at motivating JL more than I have. Will it work? We'll see. And I believe those are the only plugs that I have. Slickback Studios, if you can, on Instagram, Slickback_studios. That's helpful. You can follow the network. JL, back to you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike. Great plugs. And I will see you next Thursday.